It is another week of PTN Extra. Welcome in Alyssa Orange alongside Courtney Mims and Mike Irwin. Good to be with you again this week as baseball concludes. And I know a lot of us still want to be covering baseball, but we have some exciting basketball news that is taking center stage right now. And it's Trevon Brazile. Here's the deal. I saw it, woke up from a nap yesterday and went, oh my, like what? What? That was my reaction. Like, I'm sorry. What? What was your reaction when you guys saw it?
It's not many times that the Arkansas basketball account tweets out a bunch of hog emojis. And you know when that happens, something big is happening. But they haven't done it for any other regular commit. So when I saw that, I went, somebody's coming back. Did I initially think it was going to be Trevon Brazil? No.
You thought it was Lawson Blake. Lawson Blake coming back.
Well, maybe Lawson Blake or who? I mean, I was thinking maybe it could be, I don't know, somebody else, but it was Trevon. And so, I mean, obviously that was what happened. Mike, what was yours?
Well, I waited to see what the reaction on the fans' part would be because I wasn't sure how they would feel. I mean, we've heard over and over again, I'm glad these guys are all gone. We don't want, angry fans. But the reaction has been pretty positive. And I think a lot of people feel like the guy's got potential. I think a lot of fans are smart enough to know what was going on last year. He was coming off knee surgery, probably came back a little soon. Anytime you've had major knee surgery and then you have soreness, you probably weren't really ready to go full speed. Might should have sat out another year, although these days you're probably not going to do that. But now he has. And as we were talking earlier, he's been in the combine, his vertical is up. There's every indication that physically he's fine. And so now people are thinking back to the talent that they saw in that very brief period of November into about halfway through December 2 years ago when he looked amazing. And so I think they're excited about that. Personally, I think one of the big deals is, at least early in the season, you're going to have a guy that the fans are familiar with. We're going to go through this thing in November, especially maybe early December, where all these guys are new. And the fans are going to be reacting to these new guys. Who's this guy? What's this guy going to do? So you have somebody at least they're familiar with. So I think that. And then you've got somebody that mixes with them. And yes, the coach is different, but he can explain the fan base to these other players.
Yeah, he's been there, done that kind of thing. But where does he fit in this lineup?
Well, he was the missing piece. I think before that, you wanted a guy who was versatile, and that's what Trevon Brazile brings you. I mean, the front court now is loaded. You've got Jonas Adu, you've got Savannah Vicic, and Trevon Brazile, I think, is a perfect addition to that. They're going to have great rim protection, absolutely. And to Mike's point, you want a healthy Trevon Brazile. Mm-hmm. To all those fans who are out there, and I know Mike says there's not many of them, I've seen a lot of people who are not happy about it. And to those people, I want to say, if you have a healthy Trevon Brazile, which if you go based on what we saw of him at the NBA Combine, he's top 5 in a max vert. That's what the NBA scouts were looking for. That's what they wanted to see from him, to see, okay, is he healthy? What's he looking like after the ACL tear and then the knee soreness of last year? And even last year, I look at his stats, and I know he didn't have a great year last year, but he was still leading the team in rebounding. He was 3rd in scoring. I mean, you wouldn't think that from a guy who's still missed, 7 games? So you want a healthy Trevon Brazile. That's going to add a lot to your front court.
For me, a criticism, whatever you want to call it, with Trevon Brazile, and I understand, not 100% healthy. I would like to see a stronger, more physical, down-low presence from Trevon Brazile because sometimes it felt like he was getting pushed around in the SEC. He's got to get stronger, in my mind, to be able to play down there.
Maybe, but I think some of it was also when you're indecisive, you can appear to not be physical. And you've got to talk to people that have had knee injuries. It's a very scary thing because you've gone through it. And if you feel a little twing right there, or you've got some soreness, you're thinking, oh my, this could happen again. And you don't cut loose when you're like that because you're afraid if I really plant and cut here, if I plant, cut, go to the basket, what if the knee gives out? And you may not be thinking that. It's more psychological. So we'll see. We'll see if he's more aggressive because that's what I noticed. He wasn't aggressive like he was when he was first here 2 years ago.
Here's the question. Because he decided he was going to declare for the NBA draft, and he did. He went through the combine and then decided he was not going to go through the NBA draft process, but he was in the transfer portal. Courtney, what in your mind do you think brought him back to Arkansas?
Well, I think he looked, obviously he has very good people in his camp that were telling him, look, you may not go as high as you'd like. And I look back on an interview that he did with Hogs Plus, and in that interview he said, look, I came back to Arkansas after I tore my ACL because I knew that I wasn't going to be taken in the draft where I wanted to go, and that was being in the first round. And so if he still has that same mindset about, hey, I want to be taken high in the NBA draft, then he would have seen where he was being projected at and kind of gone, okay, I could benefit from coming back, being 100% healthy, if that's what he is right now, which we would hope, coming back, having a 100% healthy year at Arkansas under Coach Cal. It's a perfect scenario to up your draft stock.
And that's what I was going to say. Can Coach Cal be that guy to kind of take him above that hump that he's on? And we know that Kenny Payne is going to work with a lot of those bigs. So now you're working with two guys who have a lot of knowledge, not only in the game, but in the NBA as well. You're looking at that, and maybe that looks like something that's promising.
I think the fact that he's coming back tells you what Cal's attitude toward him is. He wouldn't bring him in if he didn't think, hey, I can do some stuff with this guy. We don't know what their relationship is yet, what the conversation was like, but it must have been good, or I don't think he'd be here right now.
Yeah, obviously Cal said he wants him because Cal's very, very direct on what he's looking for. Now let's go ahead and show you this graphic because it's got listed out all the other players who are going to join him this season at Arkansas. These are the transfers that John Calipari brought in, and if you wipe to the next one, those are the incoming freshmen. It is a loaded roster, and so again, the biggest question now that we have 9 guys on this roster are what are people's roles going to look like? Do we like this 9? Do we bring in any walk-ons to just help fill depth if you need it at all for practice purposes or whatnot? But what do you think when it looks like this is kind of a fleshed out roster, give or take maybe a player or two?
Yeah, I think it looks really, really good. I mean, if you look at anybody in the national media, they look at that roster and they've been saying Arkansas is a top 10 team coming into next season. And I believe they're exactly correct on that. You've got guys with a whole lot of talent. I love bringing Trevon Brazil back. I just think exactly what we had just said. I think he does add to those 8 guys that he already had coming in. Now the real thing I'm kind of looking at, like you said, do you have a 10th man? Do you have somebody that knows their role as a 10th man? Because like Cal said, he wanted 9 guys. Well, he's got 9 guys. So do you bring in another one to kind of say, look, your role is being the 10th man. You know that you're going to get less minutes than everybody else, but you know what your role is and who you are on this team. I think he's still going to have walk-ons and fill out that roster with walk-ons that he can use in practice situations, kind of have those grad assistants like he talked about to help with practicing with these guys. But I wonder if he's not done yet. That's my wonder.
Yeah, and then there's been talk that he might not be. Look, there's guys who are still in the transfer portal trying to find homes, and one of them is KK Robinson, who is a former Razorback who also then went to Texas A&M and to Little Rock. Is KK a guy that you add into this mix, Mike? Possibly. I mean, he was a freshman with all of those guys that came in like Moses Moody, and that was that class, right? KK Robinson, Moses Moody, and Jalen Williams, and Devo Davis. He was part of that class. That felt like eons ago.
He's a guy that's moved around because he wanted a better position. Well, is he going to come back here to be a 10th guy? Because I think that would be explained to him. And that's what makes me think that's kind of iffy. This guy is always looking for a better situation. I don't know if that's a better situation for him.
Yeah.
But I do think whatever Cal ends up calling these guys, whether they're walk-ons or they're technically on scholarship, but they're probably not going to play a lot, I think you need some Arkansas kids on this roster because you just need that. We know the culture around here. We know what it's supposed to be, and you've got to have some guys that are mixing in with all these new guys to kind of explain the way it is. What are the fans like? What's Northwest Arkansas like? What's the whole state like? What's it going to be when you go down and play in Little Rock? What's the deal with that? And you got to have guys that can explain that.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because I think we've thought so much about Cal putting together this roster of just loaded talent and 5 stars and guys who are just going to jump off the page at you for stats. But do you think it says something that nobody's from the state of Arkansas right now?
I mean, I don't know if it says something. I just think that when you're building a championship team, like Coach Cal is, that's what he's aiming to do. He's going to try and win a national championship. And so when you're building a championship team, to Mike's point, yes, I do think it helps you having someone from Arkansas on it, just to know the history, to know what it's like to wear the Razorback across their chest because maybe they've grown up here and that's all they've known. Sure. I think that's huge. Look at what Peyton Holt did for Arkansas baseball. I mean, that's a Razorback through and through.
Sure.
But I also think, to the other point of it, I do think that you're going to put together a championship roster, and you may not need an Arkansas guy. If you have talented guys, that's all you need. I don't look at where they're from. I look at what they bring to the table.
He was,
And I
a
think-
he was a little bit under the gun this time because he had to start and build the
Sure.
whole thing, and he had to do it pretty
Sure.
fast. If you look at what he's doing right now for next year
Yeah.
and beyond, you see him looking at some Arkansas kids.
And the thing is, the talent is in the state.
It is.
We've not only just seen it, but we have seen it boom and grow, and he is well aware of the guys who can come in here, especially down in Central Arkansas, and get guys who are really, really talented basketball players to play for you. But I think, to Courtney's point too, NIL and the way that college athletics has adapted right now, you don't need guys from the state. You're carrying things a little bit differently. And I'm not trying to say that name across your chest, the Arkansas Razorback across your chest, doesn't mean anything, because it does. But I think you can get guys who don't necessarily who grew up in the state, not around a Hog fan, can buy into that brand just as
I
well.
don't think you have to have a lot, maybe sometimes just one, like a Devo, what he was over the last.
Yeah.
But you need somebody, and I think he understands that. Again, I'm looking at who he's looking at for next year and beyond, and there's all kinds of evidence that he's looking strongly at some Arkansas kids.
Well, why would you not? I mean, like, to Alyssa's point, I mean, Arkansas is a hotbed for great basketball talent. So look at all the talent that has come from the state of Arkansas. I think you'd be silly not to look at Arkansas when it comes to basketball talent. But the point is, you just don't need to look at where these guys are from to still go out and win a championship.
Yeah, you're just bringing in talent, and I think that we know right now, specifically this year, guys are coming here to play for Cal, to not necessarily play for Arkansas. They got great facilities, but they're playing to play for Cal because Cal had to put a roster together. So
Well, a large number of them he'd already gotten to either to Kentucky and already signed, or were going to go there.
Right.
So a big portion of this group that he's brought in was people that they were already committed to him.
Right.
Again, I think it shifts after this year because he's got more time to forget. But I think what I believe is he will recruit all over the country.
Yeah.
I think he's going to go back northeast. I think you're going to see him do that.
That's what
where
you
he's
get
from.
with a guy who carries his own brand. The Coach Cal brand is its own brand. It carries its own weight.
And right now, that brand has a Razorback on it, and so he is walking into any gym, in any school, in any state, wearing a Razorback on his chest right now, and it's going to mean a lot for the program, that kind of exposure and how it grows, and it'll be really, really fun. But right now, Arkansas's got the 9 guys that they have right now on this roster, Trevon Brazil included. Look, Courtney, you and I got to sit down with him. He's a good kid. I don't think you can't not root for Trevon Brazil, but it's been really tough to see his road be as rocky as it is. I am personally excited, and I hope that he finds some success this year.
I think that's what people don't realize. And if you want to go back and watch that interview, it's on our YouTube, so you can. But he is a good person. And sitting down with him, I even didn't realize, why he does the things he does and what kind of player he wants to be. And the fact of the matter is, he cares about Arkansas.
He does.
We talk about having an Arkansas kid. This kid does care about playing for the Razorbacks. He does. And so take it for what you will, but I do believe that will be a presence on this year's team.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting to see how these pieces come together. And again, guys, we also learned last year, you can put a really talented group of people together. That doesn't mean they play together. And so I think that's now the next step is you got this group together. How do they play together? So I'm excited to see whenever we get to step into a practice or see some games. But that's way down the road. So we'll keep hoping and wishing that we see it sooner rather than later. That is going to do it for this week's PTN Extra. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.